Title: I accidentally video called my boss while showering. I was in the middle of a shower while reporting to my boss, when my hand slipped and switched to a video call. I was scared to death, wondering if he saw anything. My boss said he only saw me from the neck up. Phew, that was lucky. From the neck up just means my face. Phew. Who knew he would then add, from the ankle? The ankle? The moment those words left his mouth, the entire sprawling office fell into an eerie silence. My boss, Alistair Dewan, and I just stared at each other, big eyes meeting small. My salary shouldn't be called a salary anymore. It should be called emotional damage pay. Yesterday was the weekend, and I was supposed to be enjoying my day off. I was leisurely taking a shower when I suddenly got a message from Alistair Dewan: report the arrangements for next week's meeting. At that moment, the foam on my head hadn't even been rinsed off, and some of it had trickled into my eyes. But I had no time to care. Fearing Mr. Dewan was in a hurry, I called him directly. After hearing the first beep, I placed my phone on the nearby rack and started talking while rinsing myself. But it was strange. I rattled on, but the other end was completely silent. Just as I got to the main point, he hung up. What's wrong? I wiped the water from my face, my stinging eyes blinking open. Annoyed, I picked up my phone and saw a 2:21 long video call log. The ankle? Doesn't that mean he saw everything? I swallowed nervously. Then did you see my back? I hesitated, finding it incredibly hard to ask. Alistair, who had been approving documents, paused his stamping and looked up at me. Is there something on your back? Looks like you probably didn't see it. The rock in my heart finally dropped. I waved my hands repeatedly. It's nothing at all. I'm so sorry, Mr. Dewan. It was my mistake this time. I won't make this kind of error again. Alistair accepted my apology with unnerving naturalness and turned his focus back to the documents. With his high-bridged nose, gold-rimmed glasses, and a stern, upright face, he radiated an abstinent aura, as if he wasn't the same man who had stared at another man showering through a screen for over 2 minutes yesterday. Don't be so careless next time. Get back to work. Returning to my desk, I slumped into my chair, feeling more terrified the more I thought about it. Thank goodness Alistair didn't see the thing on my back, or I might have had to pack my bags and leave. After all, what normal person would have that on their body? A few days ago, I went to a bar for a drink. I was in a bad mood, so I drank like there was no tomorrow, one glass after another. But my tolerance is terrible, and I quickly blacked out. The next morning, I woke up in a large hotel bed. The strange feeling in my lower body, coupled with the steady breathing next to me, reminded me of what happened last night. My back door, which had been securely guarded for 23 years, had been breached. I didn't dare turn on the lights, and I certainly didn't dare look at the man beside me, afraid he'd be some pig-headed slob. I grabbed my clothes and scrambled out of there. It wasn't until I got home and into the shower that I discovered that, aside from the scattered red marks, there was an additional imprint on my back. I could clearly see a bright red circle with large letters printed inside, "Quality inspected. Designated for slaughter." Who the hell stamped a pork quarantine seal on me? It wouldn't wash off, and I couldn't exactly cut it out of my own skin, could I? I was so furious I almost self-combusted, and I resolved to find that night fiend. But whether by coincidence or not, I couldn't find the room reservation record, and the hotel security cameras were all under maintenance. My heart was filled with hatred. Kid, you better hope I never find you, or I swear I'll cover your entire body in pork quarantine stamps. As a recent graduate and an intern, I had to learn everything about my job from scratch. The senior in charge of training me was named Ethan Fong. He had been Alistair Dewan's special assistant for 4 years. Because of his outstanding abilities, he was being transferred to a branch company as a vice president next year. In the months before he left, he needed to train a competent new assistant for Alistair. Yes, that trainee was me. Following Ethan's method, I sorted the urgent and regular documents and prepared to deliver them to Alistair for approval. But after knocking for a long time, there was no answer. I boldly pushed the door open, only to find his desk empty. Instead, a faint sound came from the break room. Through the slightly ajar door, I saw Alistair with his back to me, changing his shirt. He was on the phone with his Bluetooth headset, which explained why he didn't hear me knock. My first reaction was to sneak out before he noticed. After all, yesterday's peeping incident had just happened. If the roles were reversed today, it would be a huge joke. But just as I turned, Alistair casually took off his shirt. His broad shoulders and narrow waist were perfectly revealed, the lines of his muscles dazzlingly beautiful. My footsteps halted. My eyes widened. From several meters away, I could clearly see a series of crisscrossing scratch marks on Alistair's back. They looked old, most had scabbed over and peeled off, revealing pale pink new skin. Even so, it was enough for me to imagine a passionate, wild night. Just then, my hands went slack. The documents fell to the floor, making a series of dull thuds. Alistair's back stiffened. He turned his head, and his eyes met mine. "Assistant Sheen, is something the matter?" Alistair reacted first. He grabbed a new shirt and put it on, instantly concealing the marks under the fabric. His tone was perfectly calm, but I sensed a strange hint of awkwardness and guilt. I forced a stiff smile. "I'm sorry, Mr. Dewan. I came to deliver some documents. I didn't know you were changing. I'll just head out." With that, I turned and fled, moving as fast as if the room contained a virus. "Liam, why are you spacing out during work hours?" A man walked up to my desk and flicked my forehead. I snapped back to reality, realizing I had broken out in a cold sweat. Facing the concerned-looking Ethan Fong, I thought it over and couldn't help but ask, "Ethan, you once said our CEO is a clean-living man, abstinent and devoted solely to his work." "Huh? Is that right?" Ethan gave me a strange look. "Of course it is. Isn't it obvious?" "Huh, very obvious." I'm a little hesitant, but do you think it's possible that he's just putting on a righteous act? Those words really crossed a line. As soon as I said them, Ethan's eyebrows shot up. "Liam, I'm telling you very seriously, you can doubt Mr. Dewan's height, you can doubt his age, you can even doubt his gender, but you absolutely cannot doubt his character." Alright, now I see why he got promoted to vice president. But hearing Ethan say that did dispel many of my suspicions. It was ridiculous, really. A moment ago, I was actually suspecting Alistair Dewan was the night fiend from that night. The truth is, I wasn't completely without memory of that night. As I was being carried away by the tides of passion, I vaguely saw Alistair's handsome, slightly out-of-control face. But later, I instinctively dismissed it as a drunken hallucination. After all, a man who normally buttons his shirt up to the very top, like a cold, abstinent ice sculpture, just didn't seem like the type to have a one-night stand. But today, I was a little uncertain, so I had to probe Ethan. Ethan had been by Alistair's side for 4 years, he would know his character well. What he said must be true. It seems I was letting my imagination run wild. A man like Alistair Dewan probably hadn't even seen a poor quarantine stamp before, let alone carried one around. And the marks on his body? Probably from a cat scratch, a rash, or maybe from being whipped by his mother with a feather duster after misbehaving. In any case, it wasn't the man I ditched that night. After successfully reassuring myself, I grinned sheepishly. "Ethan, my brain must have short-circuited just now. I was talking nonsense, don't mind me." Ethan was usually easygoing, but he was surprisingly serious about this. "Don't let me hear you say things like that again, or I'll really get angry." I held up 3 fingers in a pledge. "I'll never say it again." Only then was Ethan satisfied. He opened his mouth to say something else, but suddenly stopped. He looked at the doorway behind me, his expression clearly strained. My heart seized. I slowly turned my head. Alistair Dewan was standing there. Who knows how long he'd been there? For fuck's sake. Could there be a more embarrassing scene than this? Alistair retrieved the materials he wanted and left without a word, but I knew in my heart that he had heard everything. For the rest of the day, I was on pins and needles, feeling like I could receive a termination notice from HR at any moment. Seeing my state, Ethan comforted me. "Don't worry, Mr. Duan won't do anything to you. Haven't you noticed he's especially lenient with you?" I was stunned. "He is?" Ethan's tone was certain. "Of course. Take that speech incident last time. If it had been anyone else, they would have been fired 800 times over. But did Mr. Duan even say a single harsh word to you?" "He just said, 'Don't do it again,' and let it go." The incident Ethan mentioned happened not 2 days after I joined the company. Alistair, a young entrepreneur, was invited back to his alma mater to give a speech. With his busy schedule, he obviously didn't have time to write the speech himself. That task fell to me. As a result, I carelessly mistyped the final sentence of the manuscript. So, in front of several thousand juniors, Alistair Duan declared with great panache, "Finally, your senior would like to leave you with one sentence: you are all dark-minded individuals." I will probably remember that scene until the day I die. The man on stage, staring at the manuscript as if turned to stone. The audience below, silent for a few seconds before bursting into laughter so loud it nearly blew the roof off. There were even a few troublemaking boys who, not wanting to miss the fun, shouted, "Senior, what if our minds aren't dark? Do you have any idea how much psychological damage that is for a young, successful man?" After we got back to the company, I went to Alistair to confess, fully prepared to be fired. But the scene I expected never happened. Alistair didn't fly into a rage, nor did he tell me to pack my things and get out. He just looked at me quietly for a few seconds, then sighed softly and said, "Don't do it again," and let the matter drop. Not even a single harsh word. Ethan was right. By the end of the workday, I still hadn't received a termination notice. This brought me a sigh of relief, but also a pang of guilt. My boss was clearly such a good person. Even when I made such a grave mistake, he didn't blame me. And me? Not only was I ungrateful, but I even judged him with such a malicious mindset. It was truly despicable. By now, it was dark, and not many people were left in the office building. I left the company with my briefcase, only to see the second person I least wanted to see in my life downstairs. If you're asking who the first is? Of course, it's the night fiend who stamped the poor quarantine seal on me. "What are you doing here?" The man was leaning against his car, playing on his phone. He suddenly looked up and saw me, a bright smile spreading across his face. "I came to pick you up from work." My voice was tight, every pore in my body screaming in protest. "No need. I don't want to see you. Don't come here again." The man's smile slowly faded. "Liam, I was wrong about that. I'm sorry. But now, I genuinely want to be with you." Too late. After saying those 2 words, I turned to leave. But when I reached my parking spot, my eyes widened in disbelief. "Liam, it seems fate has decreed that today we'll have joys and sorrows, but no separation," Kevin Jiang said as he followed me, looking at the scene before us. "It's not just no separation," I grumbled. "There are no breaks either. Who vandalized my scooter? Was it you?" I glared at the man with the most obvious motive. Kevin shook his head innocently. "Not me. Someone probably stole the battery. Liam, just get in my car. It'll be very late by the time you get home otherwise." "No need. I'll take a taxi myself," I replied curtly. My heart ached a little. It was peak evening rush hour. A taxi from here to my place would probably cost more than my blood pressure. My family wasn't wealthy. But just as I took out my phone, a voice called out from behind me. I turned to see a Bentley. It was clearly Alistair, who had just left the company. He rolled down the window, his gaze first sweeping over Kevin and me, then landing on my broken-down electric scooter by the road. His brow furrowed slightly. "Get in," he said to me. I was used to obeying Alistair's commands. I instinctively started to move, but my wrist was suddenly grabbed. "Hey buddy, asking my boyfriend to get in your car right in front of me? That's pretty shameless, don't you think?" Kevin glared at Alistair. He didn't know Alistair was my boss, he just thought it was some random, clueless guy. From his posture, it looked like he was about to throw a punch. At that moment, I didn't care about losing face in front of my boss. I quickly shouted, "Kevin, don't talk nonsense. We already broke up. Besides, this isn't a stranger, this is my..." My word was swallowed by the loud slam of a car door. Alistair had gotten out, his long legs striding forward. He forcefully pulled Kevin's hand off my wrist. "You're the ex-boyfriend, pestering my lover in front of me. Are you the one with any shame? Lover?" Kevin and I were both stunned. I stared at Alistair, unable to guess what he meant. Alistair looked back, and in that instant, I strangely understood the hidden meaning in his eyes. "Ah, right. This isn't a stranger. This is my hubby." After saying it, I was so embarrassed I could have died. I bowed my head low. I never thought in my life that term would come out of my mouth, and to my own capitalist boss, no less. So embarrassing. Kevin's eyes widened, his gaze darting between Alistair and me before he burst out laughing in anger. "Huh, hubby? That's a good one. Big bro, take a look in the mirror. How old are you, still trying to rob the cradle? Liam, has he tricked you? Let me tell you, men like this, with a bit of a career and a decent build, are the best at deceiving people." Kevin's words were a pure insult. Alistair was only 28 this year, 4 years older than me. Standing together, no one would see much of an age gap. It's just that Alistair usually wore suits and leather shoes, and carried a mature aura, so he didn't look like a clueless kid in his early 20s. He'd clearly seen a thing or two. He looked coldly at Kevin, as if the nasty words weren't about him at all, which made Kevin look like a petulant child throwing a tantrum because he couldn't get candy. But when Alistair finally spoke, his words were devastatingly sharp. "You have something stuck in your teeth." Kevin's face immediately paled. He hurriedly turned away, pulling out his phone to check his reflection. When he realized he'd been tricked, he spun around angrily to curse, but there was no one there. Alistair's car was already 100 meters down the road. "Mr. Dewan, thank you," I said formally to the man driving. Alistair kept his eyes on the road and asked instead, "Does he bother you often?" I shook my head. "This is the first time since we broke up. I met Kevin during a university club exchange. He sat next to me that day, and we had a great chat. Afterwards, he often messaged me and asked me out to eat. After a while, he confessed. I thought about it for a few days and then decided to give it a try. At first, everything was great. Kevin could be hot-tempered and childish, but he could also be romantic. But gradually, I discovered that he seemed to think being gay was something to be ashamed of. He never clarified our relationship to others. When we were walking and ran into his classmates, he would immediately let go of my hand in a panic. I understood at first. It wasn't something to be broadcasted, so being low-key was fine. Until a post-graduation party, when his best friend jokingly asked him, "Why is Liam so good to you? You guys aren't dating, are you?" Kevin's reaction was fascinating. His body tensed up, and he immediately retorted, "Don't be ridiculous, we're just really good friends." I didn't explode on the spot. Instead, after the party, I texted him, "Why are you still trying so hard to maintain a straight image? Are you planning to marry a woman and have kids later?" Kevin's reply was swift, "Don't you already know?" In that instant, I felt like a bucket of ice water had been dumped on me, cold to the bone. After that, I suggested we break up. Thinking back, my mood soured. That feeling of not being acknowledged by someone else. I never wanted to experience it a second time. It was just too awful. The man beside me seemed to sense my emotions, and the pressure in the car dropped. His lips tightened into a cold line. "Do you still like him?" No. If I chose to break up, there was a reason. Liking him still would be pointless. I answered decisively. Hearing this, Alistair seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. He then blurted out, "So that's why you went to the bar to get drunk that day?" I nodded subconsciously. A moment later, I snapped back. "How did you know?" From an angle I couldn't see, a flash of chagrin crossed Alistair's face. His hands tightened on the steering wheel, but his voice remained calm. "I guessed. You came to work one day looking unwell, like you were hungover." "Oh, I see." I didn't doubt him. A boss is a boss for a reason, I thought. His powers of observation are truly sharp. Before I knew it, we were downstairs from my apartment. Before I got out, I heard Alistair say, "If he comes looking for you again, no matter where, tell me immediately." He said it very seriously, with an air of unrefusable command. Both Alistair and I knew how my scooter got broken, we just didn't want to stoop to Kevin's level. But whether he would come back and do something even more childish was anyone's guess. That's why Alistair said to tell him first, no matter what. I looked at the man before me with gratitude, feeling incredibly lucky to have met such an angel of a boss. Good character, not gossipy, handsome, and even happy to help others. "Okay, Mr. Duan." "Thank you." Go on." A month later, Alistair had thoroughly cemented his angel boss image in my mind. Kevin still showed up occasionally, popping out of nowhere, saying he was wrong before, that he was responsible now, that Alistair was untrustworthy and clearly a hypocrite. It was incredibly annoying. I had to take detours to get to work every day. When Alistair found out, he let out a cold laugh. "Starting today, I'll drive you to and from work." I hesitated. A CEO acting as a chauffeur for his assistant, wasn't that a bit inappropriate? But since Alistair didn't seem to think so, I didn't dare object. After that, I fully experienced the duties of my hubby. Often, with just a few words, he would leave Kevin speechless, his male pride trampled mercilessly on the ground. Gradually, Kevin probably realized he and Alistair were not in the same league, and he stopped coming. But Alistair continued to drive me to and from work without fail. Every morning, I'd come downstairs to see his car already waiting. One morning, I felt too embarrassed and told him he didn't need to drive me anymore. Alistair pondered for a moment and nodded in agreement. As a result, at the company's Mid-Autumn Festival event that afternoon, I won the grand prize in the raffle. An SUV. I went to ask Alistair if he had arranged it. He just said nonchalantly, it was a coincidence. Alistair showed me extraordinary patience at work. Just follow your instincts. It's okay if you make a mistake. I'll fix it for you. Just don't make the same mistake twice. Under Alistair's positive influence, my mistakes became fewer and fewer. Unconsciously, I began to have the demeanor a CEO's assistant should have. Sometimes, even Ethan would remark on how quickly I was progressing, saying he could soon leave for the branch company with peace of mind. I would just smile. Who knew that Ethan would then add, "Mr. Duan is really tolerant of you." I remember when I first started. Mr. Duan was only in his early 20s then, but the pressure he gave off was more intense than a man in his 40s or 50s. When I made mistakes, he berated me until I cried more than once. How could that be? "Mr. Duan, he's just. Just what?" I found myself unable to say it. My heartbeat suddenly went off kilter. Alistair got drunk. It's funny to say, but the reason was that he was blocking drinks for me. Today was a dinner party with a business partner. Alistair brought me and a few project team members. At the dinner table, being the youngest with the least seniority, I naturally became the target for the other company's concentrated fire. All sorts of toasts were directed at me, and of course, I had no right to refuse to drink with them. But after just 2 glasses, as I was picking up the third, the man beside me suddenly pressed my hand down. My assistant can't hold his liquor well. I'll drink it. With that, Alistair took the glass from my hand and downed it in one go. Seeing this, the other company's people got even more fired up, toasting him one glass after another. Later, the partnership was successfully negotiated. And Alistair, not surprisingly, was drunk. The driver and I helped Alistair upstairs to his apartment and then left. I looked at the man on the sofa. His cheeks were flushed, his eyes half open, his pupils unfocused. Perhaps it was stuffy in the car, because he had loosened his tie and unbuttoned the top 2 buttons of his shirt, revealing his elegant collarbones. I quietly averted my gaze. Ahem. Mr. Dewan, do you want to change your clothes? Alistair stared straight at me, not answering. All right. I found a set of pajamas from his closet and went over to help him change. But before I could even take off his suit jacket, Alistair suddenly grabbed my hand. Liam Cheen, I'm not a gigolo. I'm Alistair Dewan. I was completely baffled. Why would he suddenly say something like that? I know you're Alistair Dewan, the CEO of Hunyuan. How could you be a gigolo? The next second, Alistair wrapped an arm around my neck, pulled me down onto the sofa, and leaned in to kiss me. My eyes widened to their limit. For a moment, I forgot to push him away as the scent of alcohol enveloped me. The man's tongue eagerly traced the seam of my lips, trying to pry open my clenched teeth, but his clumsy attempts were unsuccessful. Liam, open your mouth. His voice carried a hint of grievance, but those words snapped my suspended brain back to life. I pushed Alistair away, stood up, and stumbled backward in a panic. I kept retreating until my back hit something. I looked back and saw it was a display cabinet, filled with various collectibles. One of the dazzling items caught my attention. It was a stamp. Curiosity drove me to reach out, open the cabinet, and pick it up for a closer look. Quality inspected. Designated for slaughter. The truth came so suddenly I was completely unprepared. So the night fiend from that night really was Alistair. I couldn't imagine what kind of mindset a man who looked so normal, so unbelievably normal, would have to custom order this gold-plated pork quarantine stamp. And under what kind of twisted mentality did he stamp it on me? I finally fucking understood how to write the 4 words for putting on a righteous act. He was a total pervert. In an instant, all of Alistair's previous tolerance, care, and even protection suddenly turned into a sinister plot in my eyes. I took several deep breaths but still couldn't suppress the rising anger in my chest. A furious rage surged. Without thinking, I strode forward, held the stamp up to Alistair's face, and loudly demanded, "What is this?" Alistair blinked his hazy eyes, thought for a moment, and when he saw the object clearly, a spark of sobriety returned to his gaze. In the living room, I stared blankly at the now half-sober man opposite me. On the coffee table between us lay the stamp that had made me feel self-conscious for so long I didn't even dare go to a sauna. Alistair took a deep breath and said slowly, "That stamp was a birthday gift from my best friend." From Alistair, I learned the origin of the stamp. It turned out Alistair had a nickname, the Stamper, given to him by his friends. The reason was that his work often required him to approve documents, and approving documents required stamping. His best friend, who liked to pull pranks, gave him this gold-plated pork quarantine stamp for his birthday. And his birthday, coincidentally, was the day I went to the bar to get drunk. I was at the bar counter, they were in a private room not far away. Then how did we end up together? I asked the most crucial question. Alistair shook his head. I don't know either. I was also drunk out of my mind that day. Hearing this, I coughed and swallowed hard, suddenly remembering Alistair's drunken words, "Liam Cheen, I'm not a gigolo." No way. Could it be that, heartbroken, my alcohol-addled brain decided to buy some fun, and I just happened to run into Alistair at the same bar, and then blindly mistook him for a gigolo? Damn it, it couldn't be that dramatic, could it? Not daring to think further, I quickly asked the next question. Then did you know it was me? Alistair shook his head again. When I woke up, you were already gone. I didn't remember anything either. Even if I had a few fragmented images in my head, I dismissed them as drunken hallucinations and didn't connect them to you. As for why I didn't investigate who the other person was, I was afraid it would be some pig-headed slob. Okay, exactly what I was thinking at the time. I then asked Alistair a few more questions. I confirmed that at the very beginning, Alistair really didn't know it was me. It was only when I was reporting to him and my hand slipped, switching to video, that he saw the stamp on my back and realized it was me. As for why he stamped me that night, that would probably remain an eternal mystery. After all, drunk people can do anything. For example, me mistaking my boss for a gigolo. It was all so absurd, yet it had actually happened. There was no point in assigning blame, it was all the fault of alcohol. You knew all along, so why didn't you tell me? I pressed my fingers into the edge of the sofa, asking sullenly. You made me let my imagination run wild, suspecting countless people. When I went grocery shopping and passed the pork counter, I'd even have to check if the stamps on the pork looked like the one on me. I was practically going insane. Hearing this, Alistair fell silent. His gaze on me was dark and unreadable, and he didn't speak for a long time. Just when I thought he wouldn't answer, he replied in a low voice, I was afraid you would run away. He used the word afraid. Why? I'm just an intern. My abilities aren't outstanding, my education isn't that high, and I'm often clumsy and reckless at work. Even if I'm making fewer mistakes now, that's only because you gave me countless opportunities to grow. If you wanted, you could find 100, 1,000 assistants better than me. Unless it was because of me as a person. I didn't mean to hide it from you. I just wanted to choose the right time to tell you, a time that at least wouldn't scare you away. My gaze darted left and right, not daring to look directly at Alistair. I mumbled softly, Mr. Dewan, are you interested in me? I asked tactfully. Alistair, however, answered decisively. Yes. I was stunned for a moment, but surprisingly, I didn't feel shocked. Perhaps I had already noticed it long ago. After all, he never hid the fact that he treated me differently from others. I didn't ask why, nor did I ask since when. I just lowered my head, my heart full of apology, and said, I'm sorry, Mr. Dewan. I might not be able to return your feelings. Then I quickly explained, it's not your fault, it's my problem. Actually, I wasn't without feelings for Alistair. During my time as his assistant, I had seen too many of his outstanding qualities. I believe anyone who saw them couldn't help but develop a good impression. It's just that when someone shatters your dreams of love, it's hard to find the courage to touch it again. The impact Kevin had on me was not insignificant. What if Alistair was the same kind of person as Kevin? Afraid to let others know his sexual orientation, hiding it everywhere, and planning to marry a woman and have kids later? Alistair was different from Kevin. He had a career, a reputation. He would probably care more about what others thought. Imagine if, after we got together, someone asked him, are you and your assistant dating? And he replied, we're just superior and subordinate. That would be even more suffocating than just good friends. I didn't dare to bet. That kind of unacknowledged, hidden in the shadows love. I would absolutely not let myself experience it again. As my words fell, Alistair's face showed no disappointment or sadness. He just let out a soft laugh. Liking you is my business. You just need to be yourself. But I will prove with my actions that I am not like him. When that time comes, you can consider whether you want to say yes to me. My heart trembled violently. I suddenly looked up and met his gaze, which was filled with deep affection. It was as if it held a deep ocean, pulling one in, inch by inch. Alistair knew what I was worried about. Of course, he was that smart. Through the small details of my conversations with Kevin, he could guess the reason for our breakup. And the proof he mentioned, how would he prove it? A flicker of anticipation sparked in my heart. After I left Alistair's house that night, we returned to our previous dynamic. He was still the exceedingly tolerant boss, and I was still learning to be a qualified assistant. Fortunately, the effects were noticeable. Nowadays, I rarely made mistakes, though I would occasionally find myself staring at my boss's side profile in a daze. For some reason, Alistair always caught me. He would turn his head to meet my gaze and give me a slight smirk. Oh my God, was it legal to be that handsome? The months passed, not too fast, not too slow. In the blink of an eye, it was time for the annual meeting, which also happened to be the company's 5th anniversary. Alistair decided to host a large evening gala. Besides employees and their families, many business partners were also invited. In the hall, guests and friends mingled, a gathering of prominent figures. Alistair was chatting with several CEOs from partner companies. I stood behind him like a backdrop. One of the CEOs asked, "Mr. Dewan, your career is so successful, and you're such a rare talent. How come you're still single? Don't you want to start a family?" I unconsciously perked up my ears. Soon, I heard that familiar male voice say, "I already have someone I like. I'm still pursuing them." The CEO's face showed a flicker of disappointment. The next second, he readjusted his expression and laughed heartily. To be able to captivate a young talent like Mr. Dewan, she must be a great beauty. Alistair's faint smile didn't change as he corrected, "He's a handsome man." The faces of the several CEOs froze slightly. Even I was taken aback. Alistair had just, in front of the company's most important partners, revealed his sexual orientation. Was that really okay? I held my breath, then slowly exhaled. The truth was, as long as the person involved didn't think it was a problem, others wouldn't either. Seeing Alistair's normal expression, the CEOs quickly recovered, laughing and saying, "Oh, I see." The atmosphere didn't become stiff because of this interlude. But I couldn't calm down for a long time. I made a random excuse to Alistair and went to a corner to sit and rest. I don't know how much time passed, but the lights suddenly dimmed. Just then, a hand appeared before me. I looked up into a pair of deep, focused eyes, reflecting only me. Alistair bent down, maintaining the gesture of offering his hand, his lips curved into a charming smile. "Assistant Cheen, may I have this dance?" The annual meeting always had a segment where men invited their partners or crushes to dance, to liven up the atmosphere. Usually, the boss would lead the opening dance. But I had heard from Ethan that Alistair never participated. Today, he was inviting me. My gaze swept past Alistair's shoulder, and I saw countless familiar faces looking in our direction. Their gazes were filled with either shock or curiosity, but a few others wore an "I knew it" expression. Under everyone's watch, I slowly reached out and placed my hand in Alistair's palm. "I'd be honored," I heard my own voice say with certainty. Alistair broke into a relaxed smile. At that moment, I suddenly understood. Some people love with evasion, but others love with open and honest. As the saying goes, in our lives, we will meet many people. Some are shallow, some are rotten on the inside. But one day, you will meet someone who is as brilliant as a rainbow. When you truly meet that person, everyone else is just a passing cloud. From the CEO's diary. October 7th, the new assistant is named Liam Cheen. When he came for the interview, I noticed him in the crowd at first glance. It was the first time I'd seen someone's eyes be so clear. Very special. October 10th, today after work, he told me, "Mr. Dewan, it's going to rain tomorrow, remember to bring an umbrella." After saying it, he realized he'd misspoken and his face immediately turned red. Cute. October 13th, his personality is a bit ditzy, and he always makes small mistakes at work. But as long as he looks at me with those eyes, I can't feel any anger. Is this what they call being bewitched by beauty? October 14th, it turns out he has a boyfriend. October 16th, today is my birthday. My best friend gave me a gold-plated poor quarantine stamp, called me the Stamper, and got me drunk. Damn him. October 17th, shit. I slept with a stranger last night after getting drunk. When I woke up, the person was gone. I don't dare to investigate who it was, afraid it's some pig-headed slob. Alcohol is truly the devil. October 18th, regret. October 19th, still regret. October 20th, immense regret. But I accidentally heard some good news, he's single. October 22nd, so, the person from that night was him. While he was reporting to me, his hand slipped and switched to a video call. I saw a familiar stamp on his back. I knew it. I've lived for nearly 30 years without making a mistake. How could I make an exception just because of a little alcohol? It's no surprise if that person was him. But it seems he doesn't know it was me that night. Should I confess? October 23rd, probably shouldn't. It would scare him away. Better wait for the right time. October 24th, I think I can guess why I stamped him. Perhaps subconsciously, I hoped he would be mine. November 15th, today, I heard his ex-boyfriend tell him something like, "I'm responsible now. As long as you agree to get back together, I'll announce it to all my friends, no more hiding." Who cares? Are his friends more numerous than mine? November 15th, later the stamp was discovered by him. I confessed everything. To be honest, I was very nervous. I was afraid he couldn't accept it, afraid he would become distant. Luckily, he didn't. November 29th, today, he was staring at my side profile in a daze. I turned and smiled at him. He blushed. December 30th, hope to share the opening dance with him every year from now on.